everybody, and welcome to today's special recap episode of Attendance Bias. I am your host, Brian Weinstein. Today, my friend Josh White of the Stub Me Down podcast joins me to review, to recap, to talk about, and sometimes go on tangents about Phish's recent 4-night Madison Square Garden run. Just so you know, this is quite different from regular Attendance Bias episodes. There are no segments, there are no edits. It was just hit record. What did you think about the shows? Let's go from there. So, don't want to take up too much time. Thank you so much for listening and enjoy the recap of the 2025 New Year's Eve run for Phish at Madison Square Garden. Josh, Happy New Year. How are you doing? Have you woken up yet from the last 4 nights or so?
Hey, Brian. I am doing all right. Happy New Year to you. I will be looking forward to Monday. Let me rephrase. I'll be looking forward to next week when we can stop, and I know it's only the second, but it's like that Seinfeld, bear the Curb Your Enthusiasm bid on, when do you get to stop saying Happy New Year?
Right.
But I'm good, man. It was a good 4 days, like busy, but not frantic. And we got home yesterday and just kind of chilled out. And then today took down all the Christmas shit. So we really haven't vegged out a little. I'm just glad that with the way the calendar fell, we got, an extra couple of days with today being the second and a Friday. So not having to go back to the fifth is definitely a godsend.
I agree. When the calendar lines up or doesn't line up and we have New Year's Eve, we have the first and then have to go back to work on the second.
Ugh, it's the worst.
Too much too fast, as someone I know might say.
100%, 100%. But it was a great run up in New York City, and we just love the whole experience so much, And yes, obviously the music is a big part of it, but for us, I think the opportunity for my wife and I to get away, just the two of us into the city, and we meet friends, but we don't really put any expectations on we got to be here at this time or here at this time. We try and catch people when they're around, and we really just have the time for her and I to kind of just enjoy a little bit of a lull, after just a mad dash, basically from Halloween to Christmas, so, or just the holiday season. So it's always so much fun, and the band has always provided, but it has become more than us just going and seeing a bunch of Phish shows at the Garden.
Yeah, it's like a homecoming for so many of us.
Sure.
Even those of us who live in New York City, as I do, it's just a different feeling. It's like everyone's coming over to visit, but like you said, don't make too many plans in advance because you never know where the day is going to take you.
That's right.
And that's true for any Phish tour, but I feel like especially the New Year's run, so many people are around and so many plans can get made and grandiose meetups, and then it all falls apart in the last second, So it's a lot to take in if you let it eat you up. So you don't have to let it eat you up.
Yeah, and being as close to MSG as we were, I mean, we were only a couple blocks away, so it really made getting around easy, to the spots that we wanted to go to and where we were hanging out with people. And, I'm sure we kept the lights on at Mustang Harry's for, another couple of weeks there with the amount of time we spent in there. But, just being in the city around the holidays, and I'm not from New York, but I grew up not far from New York in New Jersey, and it's just a vibe, it's just a vibe. And I know New York and a lot of the other, major cities are getting a lot of bad publicity these days, but like, I didn't see a single thing in 4 days in New York where I was like, and New York is New York, man. There's no place in the world like it, and I'm just glad that we get to go there for these few days.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about that before we dive into Phish is most of the bad publicity and headlines and fear mongering that comes from or that comes from people about New York are from people who don't live in or near New York. So
Sure, sure.
that's what I'll say as a resident thereof. But anyway, let's get away from that. Let's get into the last week about Fish, the New Year's Run 2025 at Madison Square Garden. And even farther back than that, let me ask you, Josh, what was your Fish 2025 calendar year like? And then I'll ask you after that, what were your general impressions of the music of the band throughout the calendar year?
Sure. We had a good year for Fish, just as far as the places that we went and the shows that we saw. We did have tickets for Hampton, but had to pull the plug on that because of a thing for our daughter. It was homecoming. That's a whole nother story. So, despite that, we still got to see a lot of shows. We got to go to a couple of new venues. We went to New Hampshire and saw the beginning of the tour up there. We got to go to Charleston to see them. So we got a couple of new spots on on the plate, and then a couple of old staples, like we went to Philly, which seeing them at the Man, those are always two very good shows. And then we got to go to Forest Hills, which obviously I know because we got to hang out with you and your wife before the show at your place right around the corner. And that was definitely a unique Fish experience for me, just the size of the venue, the scene, the location. Very cool. I'm not gonna race back to see Fish there, but I would like to come and see some other music there that might be a little bit more uh manageable, as far as some of the logistics are concerned.
Hey, King Gizzard
Um,
is playing 3 nights next summer. Mark your
oh really?
calendars. Yep,
See, and I feel like King Gizzard's a huge draw now too, especially for a room like that.
it's
Um,
great. But anyway,
But
so we're
but
yeah.
the music I thought was very good. I really feel like the band really is aging like a fine wine, right? They find new ways to explore with each other. They get into some different jams this summer. They jammed some things maybe that they hadn't before. I feel like it was a good summer for songs like Kill Devil Falls, My Friend. They both got a couple of good turns. And then some of the old staples. There was a really long sand that they played over this summer. I'm blanking on the location. But the sound that they have, and I think that the energy they're still bringing on a nightly basis is unbelievable. After 40 something years, 42 years, wherever we're at now, um, that they still have that much interest in doing things in such a creative way to keep us on our toes, to have fun up there. It just it is very cool. And I think the perfect example is just watching Trey dance around on stage, like during First Tube the other night. Yeah, and I know we're not quite to the music yet, but just that moment and his exuberance over the entire experience. And I'm sure that, him looking out and seeing everybody freaking the fuck out in the crowd as he goes like it's the circular nature of it. And um I am definitely not like one of the people in the camps that they're slowing down, mailing it in, any of the somewhat frequent criticisms that tend to bubble up. I'm still on the fluffer side of things here.
Yeah, I try to stay as even as I can, but those same criticisms have been around forever. So it really doesn't,
Yeah.
don't pay attention to them because meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It's the same. They've been slowing down. They're not trying. They're mailing it in. They're a nostalgia act. We were hearing that in like 2013 and
Yep.
2014. So
Yep.
it doesn't mean anything 10 years later. It didn't mean anything then. Uh, my,
Right.
my Fish year was pretty good too. I also saw some new venues. The I went to 3 nights at Folsom Field, which was a hell of
Yep.
a lot of fun. I have
Yeah.
never been to Dick's, so I can't compare it to that. I do hope they return to Folsom because it seemed like everyone got in,
Hmm.
everyone was comfortable, the music was great, and the sound was outstanding. And not for nothing, I like Denver, but Boulder is a really cool, sweet place to just hang your hat for 3 days.
I've heard interesting perspectives going both ways on the Folsom versus Dix. And obviously, that's a conversation for another time. But obviously, you're somebody whose opinion I greatly respect. So it's interesting to hear you say that because some other people have said it was fun and everything like that, but that they have a preference for Dick's. And I know, you said you didn't have a basis for comparison, and nor do I, because I've never been to Folsom. Um, but Dick's is seminal fish for me. So I do hope that they get back there at some point. But I would love to go and catch them in Boulder too. So sorry
Yeah.
to derail. I just
No, it's all right. It's just I
it's
went
an
in.
interesting take, and I thought the music was great. But evaluating the scene and stuff like that, I know is also a part of your process. So
Yeah, no, it's just I went in, like I said, without a basis for comparison, without any preconceived notions. The only thing is that I don't like stadium shows, but it felt a lot smaller than a typical
mm,
stadium show
right,
because they didn't sell it out. So
right,
it was a lot of fun. It was very fan friendly. But I went to those 3 nights at Folsom, the two at Forest Hills that you mentioned, which to me was an absolute dream
yeah,
because despite, I kind of agree with you. I would rush back there, but that's literally because the venue is maybe a quarter mile walk from my house.
yeah,
So that's what it has in most of its favor. But I agree that the shows were kind of uneven and the crowd was very rude in general, not my favorite. And I also went to the second and third night of Saratoga.
mm,
And that third night of Saratoga, which has been discussed extensively on this podcast, and it was only played about 5 months ago,
yeah.
uh, it it lives rent free in my brain. It's a set that I go back to just as often as New Year's '95 or the Tweezer Fest in '94 in Dallas. Like it's kind of nestled its place as
Instant classic.
instant
You
classic.
know,
Yep.
yeah,
And other than the New Year's Eve run, those were my shows. So that's seven. Let's see. So three, four, five, about 10 shows this year. Plus, on this podcast, I tried a new series, a mini series of previewing venues, not just
yeah.
going back to shows, but also the Fish's history at any given venue they're playing throughout a tour. So that was really fun.
I really enjoyed those too.
Thank you.
And that was super helpful when we were gearing up for Forest Hills. Everything from like parking to getting some food to security. I mean, it was chock full. So that was a cool run of um, thematic episodes that you did there.
Yeah, that was my personal fish highlight of the year. Aside from SPAC Night 3, that was my personal highlight was kind of finding a new way, a new angle into digging into the history of my favorite band, of approaching it not just what music did they play, but where did they play it, and talking to people who are either from that area or around that area and kind of
Sure.
getting a sense, because to me, context is everything. So I want to know about the Moody Center in Austin, Texas, and I want to know about Climate Pledge Arena. And so it's
Right.
stuff like that, places that have lived in my mind's eye, just like shows from 1992 have lived in my mind's eye. And I get to talk to people who were there. Now I get to do the same, except now it's a building, it's a structure instead of a concert.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
my
It was
big
cool.
highlight, finding a new way
Love.
to listen and think about fish.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's always a different way to take a look at it, isn't there?
There, I hope so, because then it's going to become a nostalgia act,
Right. Well,
right?
that's for sure.
Got to find new ways, just like any relationship. Got to find new ways to do things fun, and that's what keeps it fresh. So, speaking of keeping things fresh, I wanted to ask what your general impressions were of Fish in 2025 musically. I thought of it as kind of a continuation of 2024. I looked at my notes from last year, and here's what I wrote. Quote, 2024 was unquestionably a banner year. Best overall year since maybe 2015 or since the beginning of 3.0. The band has been able to thread the needle of embracing and building upon their past success while still avoiding major mainstream attention. Still going. Even though they keep showing up in headlines and high profile places. This is 2024, like in the Sphere, a big article in GQ, Mark Maron. The shows still feel like our little secret, and that's never gone away. The big thing musically for me in 2024 was they've been able to stick the landings of big jams and somehow transition, segue, and finish songs, which makes their playing sound as fluid as ever, even though it might not be as tight as ever. End quote. When I looked over those notes and listened back to the shows that I attended and some I didn't, I don't know if I had much to add for 2025. So to me, it was kind of like a back-to-back year of the same sort of music, if not much giant progress or leaps being made between last year and this year.
Well, and I think I think it's spot on, but I think it also kind of mirrors Fish's history, right? They find a little bit of a groove and they're there for a while. And you look at 97 and I think really kind of part of 98 is encompasses that type of idea. And then you kind of get maybe the latter half of 98 with 99. And then it just, and then, you know, you look at the 2.0 era and I feel like you can find like songs that they're playing or notable songs that are absent, right? The ability to reach into their history to find something that they haven't played for a while as a treat. And then I think that fluidity that we're always looking for, and whether it's funk or whether it's, you know, the whale calls or, you know, whatever style they happen to be residing in any one period, like the fluid nature of it is one of the pinnacles, right? Like when Fish can thread all of that and seg from one song to another, back into a song from a heavy jam, and you don't even know what's happening. I mean, like I said at the top, the fact that they're still able to do that and they're so interested in doing it that way, you know, they just can't sit still. Or maybe it's just Trey, right? He can't sit still to let a status quo or, you know, no news is good news type of thing develop. And I think your evaluation really does match this year. And I mean, I don't even know. I would have to go back and do some side by side comparisons, you know, but I feel like the quality, the jamming, the bust outs, the fishiness, right? When they get silly and do stupid shit like having, you know, 20 milk cartons dancing on a stage. Um, all of it is still coming from a place of our intent is all for your delight. And so, yeah, I feel like they're really holding on to that and still pushing it forward.
Yeah, I would propose 3.0, 4.0, and now we're in the in-ear monitors point oh, because I think that's what really is the big connectivity of the fluidity, to use your word,
Mm.
of the segues and the transitions. Like they land a jam, like we'll get there when we get to nights 2 and 3, especially of this run, where the opening songs of both set ones were both sandwiches of songs in between with
Yeah.
Karini, you know, and
Yeah.
and to me that still delights me. It delights me as much as when I was 14 and finding tapes of the band from 1994 and like, oh my god, they just started this song without noticing. They went from Sparks into Have Mercy, and they didn't stop playing, and they just kind of each did a round, and then each player grabbed on to the next one, and now they're playing the song. It still has that excitement to
Yeah.
me, but they all land on the one at the same time. It's even tighter now, which is baffling to me.
Yeah.
And that's what the excitement is for me going to a show. Even though I don't anticipate it, it's very exciting because it slaps me from one side to the other, and I'm just all in. My brain has to catch up where the band's already 2 measures ahead.
Yeah. And when they're doing things like that, then like that's the surprise. That's the thrill, right? They drop back into something that you thought was finished or that they had moved on from, and they still are right there locked in together for that 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever it is. And then it's on to the next. And um, so and maybe that is maybe that in-ear monitor thing is allowing them to hear better. That was like a byproduct of the Sphere, right? Because of the
Yes.
technology, they couldn't have a whole bunch of stuff on stage with them. um and so basically as I recall, they didn't have any speakers whatsoever on stage at the Sphere. And um so I imagine that would, especially for somebody like Trey and like Mike, who are constantly adding pedals to their rigs and effects, and um, you know, how to make strange noises or combine things. It makes sense that might be a little bit of a turning point in how they hear each other, and then you know what that leads to on the forward facing end of it.
Right, and we get to hear it. We get to hear the results. It's all for
Right.
our delight and
Yeah.
benefit as
Yeah.
listeners. Combine that with the talkback mics where they can speak to each other and we don't hear what they're saying.
Right.
It's the greatest. So, looking at this New Year's run, did you have any expectations going in? I've been trying for 28 years as of the 29th to not have expectations going into a show. What was it like in your house between you and your wife coming up for the shows? Were you thinking about it every day as people were posting like this many days until YEMSG, or were you guys just walking your way through the holidays and then really looking forward to it, or was
Yeah.
it how? What was the dynamic like?
I mean, it was in the background, but
Excuse me.
we just had a lot going on. Um, maybe more so than usual this holiday season, and so it was there. You knew it was coming, but I didn't really let myself think about it too much because A, I didn't really have the time, and B, like it'll be here when it gets here. Now, once everybody cleared out, and I mean, shit, up until the morning of the 28th when we took the train, like we had family in town and stuff going on. Um, and so when we finally and then I get a little pre-show anxiety when it comes to day one, right? We've got to get there, then we've got to check in, then we've got to get ready and meet people, and I just start to get a little anxious. And um but once we were on the train and settled in, um man, I was just saying to Megan, like, let's just try and enjoy every moment, because before we know it, we're going to be on the other side of this thing. And um so yeah, I mean, I just had kind of that usual general pre-show anxiety, anticipation. In my family, we call that being journey proud, right? It's like
I
the
like that.
something is coming, it's exciting, there is a little uncertainty to it. There's some things that still need to be figured out. um and there is a little unknown factor in there. um but then after night one, like, it all just
Yeah, it all falls into
goes
place.
away. And
Yeah,
then and then you just kind of fall into your tour routine, if you
I'm
will.
shifting into fish mode. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's basically exactly what it is. So, but like musically, I don't go into any of these with an expectation or a song list. Like, I stopped doing like the pick five and stuff like that, because then I'd be like, oh man, I thought about this song, and like then I get hung up on like waiting for them to play specific things instead of just letting it come to me. And
That's how you
you
end up
know
with Spock's brain for an encore.
I mean, we're quadraphonic toppling, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like you get some of these things, and it rewards you, I think, and however people do it, right? Like, do pick like I don't care. We used to play a whole game back in the day, for from tour to tour, and but for me, the like trying to set up some sort of anticipation for the music, I feel like can have a propensity to backfire if you're expecting them to play this and they only play that. I knew that with any run like this, it's a 4 night run, you're going to get a lot of music.
Yeah.
I'm going to hear a lot of stuff that I like and hopefully some stuff that I haven't heard in a while. And I'm sure a character zero. So like, those things I can just let go of that. And then when they play. And there are some moments where like I was looking back through my set and I was like, there's a couple of moments here where like I wouldn't have maybe stacked the set list in this particular way, but there was nothing that was off, offensive, lame, and, as far as where I find my sweet spot. And I feel like that's because like I didn't go in thinking, unless they do this, it's gonna suck. Um, and that's why I always laugh about, the reaction to the New Year's gags too. But
I
we'll
love
get to
it.
that.
Yeah, no, I slop it up with a biscuit and eat it. It's so delicious to me to see all the responses. But yes, like you said,
Yeah.
we'll get to it. For me, this New Year's Eve kind of snuck up on me in a way. Like I was anticipating it. I had kind of, like you were just saying, a rough fall season. I injured my thumb pretty bad with a stupid reason. I tripped up the stairs in a theater, but I tore off a ligament from my thumb. It was like a real injury,
Ouch.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and it sucked. So my mind wasn't, MSG wasn't the first thing on my mind. In addition, it was a very tight ticket market throughout
Mm.
the fall. For anyone who did not get tickets during the on sale or from the tickets by mail, like Fish, PT, whatever, you know what I mean, the
Yeah.
mail
Yeah.
order. It was not easy. Like tickets were not shaking loose. They were on the platinum behind the stage for $350 for the 28th, and they did not drop. Did not drop. So
Mm.
I ended up with one ticket on the 30th from whenever they went on sale, whenever it was announced, all the way up to like mid-December. So I know you have to be in it to win it. You have to try to find it. I have to put my effort in, but at the same time, I was kind of like, how much is it worth? How much of my energy is it worth to find a ticket for for this when I don't know, man. Like, is it going to be the end of the world if I miss a show? And so I
Yeah.
wasn't all in beforehand because of my injury. My wife was also traveling a lot. So there's like a little bit of inconsistency. So Fish wasn't front and center for me for the most part. But like social media, cash or trade, Ticketmaster re-releases, it seemed like none were available.
Yeah.
I didn't get a New Year's Eve ticket till like maybe like December 19th or December 15th. So it wasn't the most energetic thing. So even with people posting like how many days until you YEMSG? This many. I wasn't too excited about it. And I don't know if this is fair, and I'm going to sound very not snarky, but kind of stuck up. But at this point, I'm going to say it anyway. Fish playing 4 nights at MSG 14 out of the 15 past years has kind of lent itself a certain, I don't know, like ennui to the announcement. Like, I feel like hedonism bot from Futurama, where it's like, oh, again, fish at the garden. Okay. Like, not as, it doesn't have that, I don't have that same reaction as I did once.
Yeah.
This is my
Yeah.
15th straight New Year's Eve. And it's always
Yeah.
exciting when I'm there. I'm not shitting on any of it, but I don't know. Maybe the event itself, maybe it's time for a change.
Well, and you know, uh, not for nothing, but I mean, how many shows have you seen in that room?
I
You know?
checked. I checked. New Year's Eve was my 70th.
Yeah. So I mean, like that's just 70 shows in one room, right? Like there's people that that they haven't seen 70 fish shows, they haven't even seen 7 fish shows,
Yeah.
so I do feel a little bit like there's some validity to that. And it is, I think, a question also of it's very convenient for the band. They have obviously this huge relationship with Madison Square Garden Entertainment and Dolan and all of that stuff. And um, I'm sure that that makes things easier for things to happen, right? To do like Trey wants to play 6 nights at the Beacon Theater, he makes one phone call, right? Um, Same thing for MSG or the Sphere, right? So I feel like yes, doing something different for New Year's would be cool. Megan and I talk all the time like it would be awesome if they went back to Miami. We had a lot of fun down there. It's warm.
Going to New Year's in shorts.
Yeah, right. And we did a couple. I've done a couple of the Miami New Year's, and it's a lot of fun. At this stage of their game, I don't know if that's realistic. I think whether you would prefer them to do something else or not, I think the Garden is it, and
It's
for New Year's.
for the record, it's my emotions speaking, like my emotions saying, yeah, I'd love for them to do something else. But when it comes down to it, there's nothing better than MSG for New Year's.
Yeah. I mean, and are you getting on a plane on the 28th to go to Miami for, 4 days? Maybe, but it's a hell of a lot easier to hop on a train and be at the Garden in 12 minutes.
Yeah. No, I know.
You know?
I know. It's
And we've taken the train the last couple of years, and it has alleviated a lot of my stress and anxiety. And flying to shows like that, it's out of your hands, but you still feel the stress and the anxiety of trying to get there. But the Garden's a staple, man. Some traditions,
and it's
I
ours
think, are
now.
yeah,
It's ours. Fish fans know where to go. They know the ins and outs. They know what section they want to sit in. They know what sections they don't want to sit in. They know where the closest bathroom is. They know where they want to stay. It's become routine, but it's also become home. It's become
Yeah,
comfortable.
yeah, I agree.
So let's take a look at these shows. So as usual, I went to 3 out of 4. I almost never ever go on the 28th. It's been a long time since I've seen all four. So I was not there that first night. So what I was able to glean from social media posts and conversations with friends is that it kind of fit the stereotypical profile of MSG New Year's Eve warm-up show. On paper, the Wolfman's Brother Into Punch You in the Eye segment looked amazing on paper, sounded great, but that's like what dreams are made of when it comes to two songs next to each other in a first set. And everybody I spoke to agreed that Theme from the Bottom was the jam to beat.
Yeah.
After the show, I also heard that Trey sounded hoarse and his voice sounded weak. The same thing was true last year. When I double checked my notes, we said almost the same exact thing. So this seems to be, again, routine. It seems to be unsurprising.
He might have. I mean, I don't feel like his voice problems were an issue throughout the run, and I only really recognized it, I think, in Antelope and maybe like, I don't know, Everything's Right. I can't remember one other song, but it was not like he just sounded like a little raspy, but it wasn't bad by any means. Nothing a little chamomile tea couldn't cure when he got back to his apartment after taking the train.
For 8 minutes, he said it takes him only 8 minutes to take the subway to Madison Square Garden.
That's right. But no, as far as night one was concerned, I don't think this is going to be the best show of the run for anybody, but it was very good. Buried Alive coming out strong. I love a good instrumental, and those, Carts, Trucks, and Buses, Buried Alive, some of those bode well for a good show, right? So that backed up to the bag. I thought the Rogue was a little bit early, but was good. It was, pretty strong, and definitely had some creativity in it, but it felt like a little too early in the show and even in the run to kind of dial it back in that spot. Um, the Wolfman's Brother Punch, absolutely the best segment. Wolfman's Brother is, for my money, a can't miss. Like every time they play a Wolfman's in the first set, it's going to be 13 to 15 minutes. And like you can throw a dart and hit an amazing Wolfman's. That's basically standard at this point. Like an
It
amazing
is.
Wolfman's is standard at this point. So whenever they fire that up, I know we're in for a good one. And then the punch, I know a lot of people were talking about 12/31/95 and the punch you in the eye from that show. And not saying that this matched that energy or anything, but they really have, I think, committed to the long intro build up.
I love it.
And
I love it.
I
I'm here for
absolutely
it.
I absolutely love it. So that right in the middle here was good. Um, Sigma is Sigma. I thought the taste was really good. And I'm not usually like I like taste, but like there's something about that version just kind of popped with me in that moment. Um, and then Sleep, I think, when Trey turned around and picked up a different guitar, which never happens mid-show, right? Like he plays, like he comes out with a guitar and he plays, unless he's doing like solo acoustic or Trey band or something like that for Fish. And I'm sure that I'm wrong, but like I don't ever recall him coming out and changing guitars unless it's, picking up an acoustic to play something. And then he plays a song that they hadn't played in 230 shows. Um, that was a very cool moment. And I feel like that, bust out thing set the tone for, there was going to be at least one bust out the rest of the run. Um,
Well, I think that the Beacon Jams has a lot to do with that. The idea of him like kind of having the versatility and the flexibility to play whatever he wants in whatever kind of lineup he wants to play it. So if he just wants to play with an acoustic guitar, like in a storyteller's kind of fashion, it's great that the rest of the band is in on it because that reminds me of kind of how it turned into 2000 with like the in-law Josie Wales, and there were
mhm.
certain songs that was just Trey on a stool, and you
Yeah.
were at a Fish concert, but you weren't hearing Fish per se play. I remember when I saw them on that same date, December 28th, all the way back in 1998, right in the middle of the first set, where they also played Taste, by the way. There
Hmm.
was like a mini acoustic stage that they had covered in a tarp. And just the four of them, they were all playing. It wasn't just Trey, but it was Sleep, Albuquerque, and Driver. But you could see that acoustic guitar set up in the back. And a lot of us were hoping, oh, maybe he'll play it. Most of the
Yeah.
times he doesn't, but this time he did.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that was a little bit of a treat there. Second set, I mean, really no complaints. Some people I saw online were a little bit disappointed in the end of the Simple being ripped into Jabu, but I thought the Jabu was good. And then Theme from the Bottom, as you said, I think that was kind of the jam to beat out of the gate. The longest one that they've ever played. And there've been some good Theme from the Bottom. So like the one they played in the Miami run in 2014 is really
Yeah,
good.
that's the one I thought
There's
of.
there's another one from Atlantic City that was the Halloween run in 2013.
November 2nd, yeah.
Yeah, so there's some decent themes that are out there that get exploratory. This I felt like they were exploring. They kind of it was almost like you were swimming along and you were going up and you were going down and it definitely. I've only listened back to it once. We listened to it the next day, but that was one that I felt was another tone setter, and they definitely packed a good, probably 8 or 10 minutes in my estimation of quality jamming in there, in addition to, the theme proper. And then you mentioned it before where they're kind of weaving in and out of things with big gaps. I mean, if you look at this, it was the Simple Jabu theme back into Simple. And so again, they have that ability to push these things together and the joy that I feel when they return to something that had sounded so good. Like, I don't know, it just builds that excitement level. Um, and then for them to be able to keep it there, I mean, and I think that that's the tricky spot. But I was definitely pleased. And then a slave to leave on night one. Yeah, I was pleased and really had high expectations for a good time over the next three. Like they basically confirmed that it was going to be awesome.
That's good to hear. I haven't heard any of 1228 yet, so it's good to hear that you left with that anticipation, but also thousands of others thought that it kind of confirmed through all of our tea leaf reading that it's going to be, a transportation gag for New Year's Eve between cars, trucks, and buses and the Trey subway announcements and all this. And obviously, it was not an intentional red herring, but we kind of faked ourselves out as we tend to do.
And we have a tendency to do that, don't
Yeah.
we?
So 1229, night two, in my opinion, the best show other than New Year's Eve. To me, New Year's Eve was the best overall show, musically speaking, and of course for the showmanship. But this one was the best of the non-New Year's
Which
Eve
is rare
shows.
to, which is, sorry to cut you off, but which is a rare thing to say.
Yeah.
One or two New Year's aside, 12/31 is never the best night of the run as far as the evaluation by people.
The last one I could think of is 2010 was the Meat Stick New Year's
Okay.
Eve.
Yeah.
But there were some amazing gems. That was also the Holy Ghost.
Mm.
And so
Hmm.
there were some amazing, amazing jams on that New Year's Eve 2010. Usually, you're right, it's 1229 or 1230.
Yep.
In this run, I think it's 1229
Yeah.
underneath New Year's. But
Yeah.
the immediate Carini plasma sandwich that we mentioned at the beginning of our conversation delighted me. I love setlist games and surprises. I
Yep.
didn't know that they were playing quadraphonic toppling. Like I've listened to that segment of Big Cypress dozens of times on CD, on my Discman in college, dozens of times, but this didn't really sound like that. I thought they were playing either ficus or so like something with a heavy, weird bass riff, like doo 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 doo. That's what it sounded like to me from where I was.
Mm.
And I couldn't quite make out the sample of quadraphonic toppling. So the people around me were all, myself included, were all on our phones on fish.net, refresh, refresh, refresh. So that became a nice treat, even though it didn't blow my mind the way that when I heard, say, Ride Captain Ride or Sparks, something a
Mm.
little bit more
Hmm.
recognizable and obvious,
Sure.
even though
Sure.
uh, I love hearing rarities. But
Yeah.
it was a delight to find out.
Yeah. I mean, when they, first of all, it was early in the show for
Very.
something like that. And so when they started it, I was like, and I didn't catch the first one or two samples, and I was like, does Fishman have a new sample?
That's what I
And then
thought.
and then I was like, wait a second, is that? And then I caught it clearly. And I was like, holy shit. And I was like, what is the stats on this? Which I didn't look up. I was just like, what are they going to do with this? Are they just going to play it? And then are they going to seg back into something? Um, and it just ended up being a really cool moment. And I will flex my stats a little bit here, but I've been to two of the three quadraphonic toppling. The one I was not at was the most recent, which was May 27th, 2022.
Oh,
Where's the
see, you
war? What's
added
that?
your
Arkansas,
50% club.
Alabama.
You're
Yeah,
in the
that was the
50%
Alabama
club
show.
now.
Um,
But it to me, it kind of fits in. It occupies this weird space in the Fish catalog, which in the way that when I was at Jam Night, I think it was during the Baker's Dozen when they played End of Session,
hmm,
which was like, I didn't anticipate this. I almost completely forgot about this track. I never thought that I would hear it played live, but I also didn't go in hoping that I would. But I'm delighted when it happens.
Right. That I always like end of session to me was always just like
It's like a studio leftover.
yeah, like an interlude,
Yeah.
that they dropped, and it was not never anything that was going to be on a set list. But quadraphonic toppling, I was like, uh, wow, that's cool. And then I looked up and saw the show gap on that one was what 172. So now you got a 231 and a 172 as far as your bust outs for 2 nights. And when I evaluate Fish, I big jams, tight playing, some bust outs, or some callbacks to other things that they've done. Um, and they were checking all the boxes early here.
Yeah. And on top of that, yes, I agree with you, but also the curtain with a stellar rocking bathtub gin, which everyone around me was freaking out. I include myself in that. It was off to a hot start. I was almost thinking special show question mark, kind of the way that in the beginning of the SPAC Tweet Prize show, not the same sort of special, but like, are they pitching a no-hitter right now? Like, is it that kind of a show? It didn't quite reach that height for me personally, but it was better than average, and average is great. When I go to my favorite chicken wing place in Buffalo, Duff's, they have a little scale when you walk in that says mild is medium, medium is hot, hot is really hot, and it's this funny little thing. And to me, like
Right.
average fish is actually great music.
Yes.
But
Yes.
to me, this was better than average, but not
Yeah.
quite all the way at the top of the scale.
I agree with you there. The bathtub gin was definitely ragey. I think in my estimation, and I like bathtub gins that kind of have a little bit of a theme. Think about the Magna gin or Nassau 22803
Sure.
is probably my
Top one.
all-time favorite.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like Murat and Went, and those are also obviously outstanding.
And by the way, on 12/29, just to push it in there, the real gin. Don't want to leave it out of this list.
Right, right. Yes. So I mean, obviously you can go back to a lot of them. This one felt ragey, but lacked a little kind of a thematic direction. But I mean, that set was can't miss at that
Yeah.
point.
And the Fluffhead
Um,
closer, I mean, that's just cherry on
and the
top.
fluff head, and I said to Megan, during the fluff head, I was like, they're nailing this. And like it was flawless precision. And Fluffhead's a technical one, like usually you'll catch a couple of missed notes here and there, but it just sounded and felt so good. And I really like that Fluffhead has become this first set closer that has packed a little bit of a punch. They're taking it 15, 16 minutes. Where were we? I was for sure that the first set was gonna be over, and they played it. Where
Was
was
it
I?
Atlantic City
No, it was
a
just
couple years back?
recent. It might have been. It might have been at. Let's see. I think it was at this show here. Let me just make sure it was. I think it was the Saturday. Sunday. Yeah, no, the third night of Manchester from Summer Tour. Like they played My Friend, which was a long one, Egg in a Hole, and then Fluffhead at the end. Like it was just like you're surprised that it's coming in that spot. Either you're looking at the clock or, for one reason or another, but then they have just been crushing it. Although they did open Hampton with it this past run. So,
Right.
the formula is not hard and fast, but I definitely have enjoyed a fluff head in that position instead of say a walls of a cave.
Plus one.
Yeah.
Plus one for me. The second set, the opening mics into Final Hurrah, which I thought was Blaze On, and so did Fish from the Road thought it was Blaze On. That's what they posted out there before Dirty deleting it. But Mike's Final Hurrah, Weekapog, it was energetic. It was a little odd, I thought, in terms of flow and set list. I mean, they're playing what they want, which is fun. To me, it was kind of like I didn't know which way to go. It was also kind of compact, those three songs together. Not a lot of
Yeah.
extended jamming in either of them, although Weekapog has its moments. To me, it was a wave of hope, really.
Yeah.
That's what caught my attention. That's what I'll remember when I look at this set list. The second set took a little while to get there, but it was the jam of the show. Like energetic, focused, powerful rock and roll. The rest of the set was very good, Golden Age especially, but kind of pedestrian after that to me. But just putting the stamp of approval, strong show overall, where I thought this first set was better than the second. That's how I took this 12/29. And
Mm,
to me, 12/29 is a special show just because it's the same date as my first show. So I
sure.
always make an effort to get there just because out of sentimentality. But I'm glad that it lived up to average grade expectations.
Yeah, there was definitely a fake out there on the Blazon, and then the final hurrah was like it did get a little bit weird
Yeah.
in there. I mean, for I think it was 7 8 minutes, something like that. I don't have the timings in front of me, but we same with Weekapog, right? That's Megan's favorite song, so she was stoked that we were getting that segment, and then um, Wave of Hope. I feel like is another tune that has a very high average.
Yeah,
You
like
know,
Ruby
you're you
Waves.
you know it is, and the one thing that I always make a comment about when we talk about Ruby Waves or Wave of Hope or some of these other songs is if it wasn't called Wave of Hope, like what if it was called Moonlit Confusion or some other, the
Some
pillow
like
pillow
cryptic,
drowning,
yeah.
yeah, shallow, like any gold, anything that's not Wave of Hope, this would be like one of the most revered and favorite songs because the jams are always good.
And that goes all the way back to the very beginnings of 3.0. You know, people I remember glommed on immediately to 20 years later. Loved it. Fan favorite song right out of the gate. But backwards down the number line was a ripcord every time it was played, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I agree
Yeah.
with you. The branding matters.
Yeah. And as far as the rest of this show here, I thought the Golden Age had some nice little spice. Um, I really liked the encore here, the Lizard's Possum encore. I thought that was very fun and unexpected. And lizards, everybody's gonna love.
Everyone loves it.
Everyone loves lizards. And then, so I was thinking, oh, we're gonna end with lizards and send us off. And then when possum started, and then because everybody, possum was the other potential gag that everybody had thrown out there because it was on the T-shirt and the
Yeah.
blanket that they were giving away, or the blanket they gave away with the travel package, but they were selling the T-shirt at the merch stand, and so everybody was like, "Oh, it's going to be a possum gag." So I was glad they put that to bed early, and again, just like the slave the night before, like I love walking out of the garden like on that high, right? Like the energy, you still have that high energy and excitement, whereas sometimes they can let the air out of the balloon a little bit early, and uh no pun intended, of course, but the energy levels when you leave a show with a Lizard's Possum, and I'm sure a lot of people were stoked about the zero that ended the set, but
Yeah.
it the Lizard's Possum for men, whatever, 0 0, but the Lizard's Possum really felt nice with just the way the rest of that set was, the way it started. But I agree. I feel like this night was really more about the first set than the second.
The next night, December 30th, the legendary date of December 30th, more sandwiches to start, right? Very Page-esque, but Chalk Dust Torture into the Moma Dance and back into Chalk Dust. Of course, Moma Dance is played second, even when it's within another song. It has to be the second song, always played of the first set. So I liked it, even though Moma Dance being in the two spot couldn't be avoided, even with the segue. I love the segues, so it gets a pass from me this time. But I should
Do you know
note,
on the next, I should have thought about this before, like Trey did the Ask Trey
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Like somebody should have asked him, like, why do you play the Moma Dance basically second every time you play it? Occasionally it'll slide into the opening frame, but um, I mean, a second set or second spot MoMA is like,
You could set your
I
watch
mean,
to
you
it.
get second your watch. Yeah, 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 100%.
So I should note that for this show, I had a weird seating setup. So I was behind the stage, which is not the weird part of it. I've sat there before, about 10 rows up, right behind Paige. I could see right over his shoulder. It was wonderful. I was sitting alone. I was solo this night. Great sound. However, I found myself right in the midst of a group of about four guys and one girl who, throughout the entire show, were all making out with each other, like swapping in between one another. It didn't matter whichever two people were together, like between the rows, between the row in front of me and next to me. So they were all together somehow. They were all making out, hugging, kissing, sitting on each other's laps, reaching for each other, talking very loud. Not quite a thruple. My wife told me that it's called a polycule. Polycule. So I'm expanding my vocabulary and worldliness through fish. But really, if you look up polycule in this context, it's basically a bunch of kids in their 20s rolling on MDMA, touching everyone and everything that came their way. So I was quite distracted throughout portions of this show,
Yeah.
and it's going to color my opinion, which is not entirely positive. So keep anyone listening, and Josh, you just keep that in mind. Imagine you're hearing this amazing version of Divided Sky, which I loved, but then someone putting their hand on the shoulder of the guy next to you and then leaning in for a huge kiss and then turning to the girl next to him and then they're starting to make out and then turning around and screaming back at them before putting his hand on your shoulder and saying like, "This is awesome. Is this awesome?" And I've been in better areas of a show. I'll put it
All
that way.
right. Hey,
So
yeah.
I was
You don't
distracted at
you don't get to
times.
pick your seatmates all the time, right?
That's true. Yeah, but I will say Back on the Train was a lot of fun because it ruined hundreds, if not thousands, of predictions of the gag being about the subway and transportation. And
Yeah,
I loved it. And Divided Sky, like I said, it was very romantic in my section. Everyone was kissing and hugging.
that's funny
There's
because
something about Divided Sky that
I
triggers
had
it.
never really thought Divided Scott like that ain't on our sexy time playlist over here, bro.
Well, this group, I don't know if this group is old enough to even listen to podcasts or if it's uncool for their age group. But if you guys and girls are listening, you
Congrats
really
on the
found, yeah,
sex.
congrats on the sex during Divided Sky. It was sexy time for them.
Jeez, that's funny. Well, I'm sorry that you had that experience, and
It was just distracting. It wasn't bad to be amongst all these people like rolling like crazy because I've been there for sure.
yeah, but
But
it,
but it got
that's
distracting when you're the sober guy at the drunk party.
yeah, yeah. No, it's um. I mean, and
But
what? There was somebody at Widespread Panic that like got arrested for like banging in the seats or something like that. Like,
that's what I read.
I don't know, man. I don't know. But as far as the show was concerned, you
Loved
know,
Reba. Tube had a great
yeah,
jam.
I feel like the um again a very strong first set. Chalk Dust, MoMA, Chalk Dust. Um, the Axela got a little spicy, I feel like.
A
And
little
then
bit, yeah.
um this for me was really the Blaze on Tube Reba split open and melt.
Yeah.
And that melt was really high quality. I mean, it was chaotic. It was um spacey. I think there were a lot of red lights happening during that. And it really had this evil fish feel. And that was not the vibe of the whole set, but they really dug into it here. And then the tube, I thought the tube was really good. Mike was doing like playing with like that hollow bass effect. I'm sure it's called something, and I'm not even close to describing it properly, but it's like this just like it sounds like you're inside the base almost like in a tube, and it's like I mean he really made it sound like you were in a tube. And so I really like the last part of this set was very, very good. um which balanced against at least the Ghost to start set two was different because the Ghost to me felt very laid back,
Well,
very.
that was my biggest note too. Well, I mean, for Split Open and Melt, I feel like there's when it comes to 3.0 Split Open and Melts, there's two types of people in the world.
Like it
And
or don't.
yeah, and
And
it's
you
really
don't.
that. It's really, well, it's not that I dislike it per se, but it doesn't excite me when the band just makes dissonance noise in the same way I might skip over Space from a late 80s Dead show.
Sure.
That it's not always for me. But what I do like is during Split Open and Melt when you kind of feel everybody's drugs start peaking at the same time. That I like. And I say that unironically. I really did. When I was looking around and seeing other people's faces, even though I didn't love the music, I might fast forward or maybe listen once back to it. But the experience of being in that, this is where being the sober guy at the drunk party is fun. When
Yeah.
you see everyone else freaking out and you can hold it together, I
Yeah.
really like that during Split Open and Melt. But yeah, the Ghost, I my first note is I spent a lot of this set sitting down because the jamming was very
Mm.
laid back and
Yeah.
very relaxed compared to the focused, aggressive playing of the previous night, especially of
Yeah.
1229. I didn't love it. Cross-eyed and painless was the high point for me. But to me,
Yep.
1230 was the weaker. Certainly, if I always pair 1229 and 1230 together, because I usually don't go to the first night. So to me, this is kind of like if you want to chill out, if you want to sit back, if you want to just hang out and maybe put it on in the background, this is good. But when I'm like eager and so close to the band, because even though I was behind the stage, I was close to the stage. I could see
Yeah.
everyone and everything. It wasn't my type of jamming.
Right. And yeah, for me, this set, I really enjoyed the Ghost Ruby Waves. The light was good too. Cross-eyed, and then it felt a little bit disjointed towards the end. Twist, Cavern, First Tube. Um, but I mean, they brought the house down with the first tube, and then the encore. I was hoping for a double there. Drift while you're sleeping. That was one that, and I know a lot of people like the tune, and I don't dislike it, but this is a placement thing for me.
Yeah,
Um, and there's a million things I'd rather hear in this spot, but I feel like it, especially with that second set not being as ragey. I like the word aggressive, like it was definitely not as aggressive. Or
there wasn't any
sometimes,
attack.
yeah, like sometimes you can tell Trey is like trying to get through an idea and move on to something else. And I mean, there were times where I wouldn't call it meandering, but they were very settled into just kind of a mellower vibe.
I agree.
And yeah, so a couple of highlights here, but it definitely not my favorite of the run. And again, this is only after giving everything maybe a once back through. And so, rankings are always subject to change, but
Of course.
definitely. So, and then the other thing is that there was no bust out in this show. And um and then Megan liked it because we got to basically the Blaze On, and she was like, oh, it's going to all be 1.0. And then they played the Blaze On, and I was like, sorry, your dream of the 1.0 set will have to be renewed for another day.
Next time, come back next year. Wait till next
We'll,
year.
we'll be back next year.
And speaking of next year, we're already at New Year's Eve. So we said this already that it's rare that New Year's Eve is the best show of a 4-night run. That was the first thing I wrote down. But this one seemed apparent right from the get go. Like Mike was omnipresent from Free, like the opener, and Birds of a Feather. I thought the band is saying, we're here to play tonight. Like we are there to play, as you say in
Mm.
sports. And there's a point I noticed, especially in Stash, which was one of my favorite jams of the night and of the whole run, where Fishman switches over to a 4/4 beat, which is very unusual in Stash. It's usually Latin and a little bit offbeat, and the band follows along, and it's a very straightforward jam, but kind of like David Bowie, it's kind of lost its edge, I think, in the 3.0 era. but there's something where Fishman locks into 4/4, and he's not the loudest, and he's not necessarily driving it, but the band locks into him. It's subtle, but it's just like a quick slip, and then everyone in the whole building was grooving. You could hear
Mm.
spontaneous cheers. I think it's one of the best versions of Stash, especially in 3.0, that I've heard in a very long time.
Yeah, I really like the stash. And the one thing that I caught that like one dude next to me was like, they already played that. And I was like, yeah, no shit. I keep a notebook. Um, but they like went back to a little bit of a plasma idea in there. And
Yes, I
that
heard
might
that.
and it was only for a few measures, but they were definitely playing the either it was the and again I need to listen back, but it was either the chord progression or um maybe it was the tempo. I'm not sure, but there was something I was like they played it and then they did it they took it one more lap around and I was like that's plasma, and the dude in front of me turned around and was like you're right, and like looked at the other guy. But
It's a good feeling.
um yeah, I thought the stash was really good. And for me, it was that little plasma tease in there, just perked my ears up. Though my friend was really good here. This set loses me a little bit. Like I like the waste, it was a nice moment with me and the wife. Life Beyond a Dream, Kill Devil Falls More was a little bit of a tough segment there. Especially because I like Kill Devil Falls, but they kind of gave this one a quick jog through. I like Monsters, but after the more, it just that segment didn't flow as well for me, set list construction wise. The Life Saving Gun was a great way to bring it down, but for that set, like there were some highlights, but that was definitely a little bit of a drag there for me.
I'm so glad that you mentioned the set list selection of this set after my friend. First of all, I tagged my friend as the jam of the run. I think that it just everyone in my section was freaking out during my
Yeah,
friend in a good way, like looking at each
sure.
other without saying the words, can you believe what we're hearing? Can you believe this? Without like with their eyes. And we were all
Yeah.
saying it to each other. We were all locked in this weird, awesome, my friend was the song of 2024. I'm glad it's
Mm.
maintaining its dignity, so to speak,
Yes.
in this year. But I thought something funny happened. The setlist pivoted to all 3.0 and 4.0 songs. A Life Beyond the Dream, Kill Devil Falls, More, Monsters, Life Saving Gun. The weirdest part for me, I didn't care and it barely registered with me. Usually, I'm a real stickler in my own
Mm.
judgmental asshole mentality of, more, I'm usually that guy. But in this time and place, I didn't, it, I recognize that each song was kind of newer, but it didn't really connect with me that, oh, these are all new songs because they were
Mm.
just on point. And at
Yeah.
this point, and seriously, Kill Devil Falls is 16 years old.
Yeah. I
Kill
can't
Devil
really call
Falls
it.
is a sophomore in high school. It's been around longer than my students have been alive.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
it's just something to note that a set can be carried by less popular and or newer songs.
Yeah. No, you and the Monsters Life Saving Gun, like those are two
I
additions
love
that
Monsters.
I really like both of those. And um so again, my complaints are so minuscule,
Yeah, they're
like
thin. I mean, both of us.
right. And as most of it is, it's not about the playing, it's about they played this song here instead of putting it here, so um first set felt great. I said when they lights went down for second set, we were standing there and I was like, all right, enough of this bullshit. It's time for sand.
Of
And
course you did.
literally 5 seconds later, they play sand, and not as in a standard version here 11 minutes, but it was fun. And San Fuego No Men's was and again, sand here is going to be the only, and You Enjoy Myself until they get into the kind of the gag at the end. But again, just some fun songs that they kept going in. And I still feel like, a song like No Men's, which again, debuted in 2015 or something like that,
Yes, it did.
um, is still considered new, right? But still, like, I like No Man's. Like, they've done some cool versions of that, and I like seeing, like, are they going to do something? There's a lot of room in there for that, and not they blew this one out of the water, but it was fun, it was well placed, and then um, what's going through your mind, I feel like was a great backup to that before they really jumped into some of the fishy stuff. And I didn't expect any of the New Year's stuff to start on, that side of the second set break either. So that I thought was cool.
Yeah, usually it's the third set usually kicks off, right, due to timing with the
Yeah.
gag. But with Gamehenge, it started right in the middle of the second set, or I think maybe toward the beginning, because that spanned both second and third.
It was beginning of the second set.
Okay,
Yeah.
beginning of the second set. So usually it starts with the third set. But yeah, I feel like we got to remember with this second set, we're in the middle of a three-set show on the fourth night. It's just right at this point, it's almost going right in and out of me, this
Yeah.
music. It's not, I wouldn't use the word disposable, but it's taken for granted at this
Yeah.
point. Like we've been locked in for so long that I loved you, you enjoy myself, and I'm glad that even though they did a vocal jam, they went right back into a
Yep.
second jam. Praise God. I'm thrilled about that. But No Man in No Man's Land, Fuego had a really excellent jam, although I don't remember particulars about it. I haven't listened back to it. So I remember the vibe and the feeling more than the music because we were so in the world of Fish.
Yeah.
Set to New Year's Eve, 4 nights in. And then It's Ice, and then Cream, which was a huge surprise for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Make a list of 1,000 songs you think Fish will cover. I don't think that comes up.
No. Nope.
And the It's
Nope.
Ice Cream, tipped everybody off. So we kind of knew, if not concretely, what to expect in set three, at least abstractly. And it was
I
not a
think everybody
surprise.
knew. Yeah, I think everybody knew they were going to open with Hood. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
that was
yeah, it was not a
probably yeah.
surprise for Harry Hood because that's the ice cream man or the dairy, the milkman,
Right.
Mr. Miner. And what fun! What fun! Before we get to the gag itself, were you consciously listening during 2001 and Tweezer? Or were you distracted by the visuals? When I don't mean distracted, but
Um,
where was your focus?
I was just getting down, man.
That's how I feel.
I was taking it in. I wasn't necessarily like uh pulling out different things that they were doing musically in that moment. Like I was just like it, it was just we were at a party, and
That's it. That's how the whole
and
show's felt.
yeah, and I was trying to, at the end of the second set, you got the milkman or the ice cream man walking around with the bell on stage, and then you get into the gag and Hood, and then it's like, wait, they're gonna 2001 us into New Year's, like
By the way,
pinnacle.
with Trey on drums for 2001, because
Yes,
Fishman was getting on the Rocket Pop.
he was on the Rocket Pop.
That's so. I think
Um,
that's the most fun thing is Trey got to play drums during 2001.
and I think he loves it. I think he loves
Of
getting
course
back
he
there.
does. Everyone wants
But
to be the drummer.
But so I wasn't necessarily locked into like, what specifically they were doing jamming. I was like, holy shit, it's a dance party in New York City, New Year's Eve, and they're playing like look at the set. Harry Hood, 2001, Old Lang Syne, Tweezer.
For a half hour.
Yeah, right. And then like obviously Piper Say It To Me Santos, but like are there bigger Fish songs than Hood, Tweezer, 2001? The Yem they had just played in,
Yeah.
40 minutes before. So in that like you got everything that is great about Fish, their biggest songs, and You just said it. The Tweezer Jam was 30 minutes.
And
And
they're peaking at, like, I know I just said this, but they're peaking on night 4 of a 3-set show. We're just past
yes,
1 a.m. in New York
yes,
City. Like,
yes.
there's a lot to process here.
Yeah, the second set and the third set of night two definitely um brought the goods. And then a 20-minute Piper. And
The Twicers, the Piper's good.
I've always had a fascination with Piper because I saw it at my first show, and um a really good one at SPAC in '04. And so Piper, I used to carry the lyrics around to Piper in my wallet like years ago. And um to get a 20-minute, and that, like, I wasn't on the clock as far as how long those jams were, but there were a couple times where I was like, dude, like, this is almost an hour of music between the Tweezer and the Piper.
Yeah. Two
So
songs.
yeah, and I was like, I knew we were getting the goods, even with the gag being, uh, you know, we'll call it a little bit more stripped down from maybe the last 2 years, right? Like, they still had acrobats and people dancing and stuff like that, but it didn't look. And I know that there was, some rumors that they had to pull the plug on, I guess, the original idea, and go with something a little bit less grandiose. But I thought it was great. Like, the gag is what it is. Like, I don't, only one gag has ever meant anything, and even that's debatable, and that's Gamehenge. Big Cypress, I don't even think that that was a gag. Like, that was just a completely different beast in and of itself. But the New Year's gag is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be visually stimulating, and it's supposed to be a party. And that's exactly what they did. And it was funny as shit to see 15 people in milk containers of varying sizes dancing on the front of the stage with a giant one hanging over the band. I mean, some of the theories out there about what the real meaning behind the gag one was.
That's
Did you
all
see it was?
gobbledygook.
Oh yeah, but there's a scroll some of those. One is the political one, then there's the other one that was sexual. Like, it's hilarious stuff.
I will push back a little bit on what you said, that it's only for like a party and it's only for entertainment. This isn't even a push. This is like a little pinky push, that the artistry that goes into a lot of these gags, if that's the word we're using for sure, it's meant to be, I think, appreciated on an artistic level, at just like a way to make you think a little bit about what is up to you. So I'm thinking a lot about the Mercury one was not so straightforward. It was a little bit more abstract. This one, the idea of ballerinas, right? Or if that's the proper term, for the dancers that were the milk, right? That poured out of the enormous carton. That was the most, for me, enjoyable part. The dance. How often do Americans, let alone Fish fans, go to see a dance performance
Sure.
where like an Alvin Ailey sort of thing, where dance is the appeal. It's not like a Broadway show where there's choreography also, but dance is the artistry that's being presented. That's what they did for like 7 minutes straight.
Yeah.
And that's something to be appreciated and, in my opinion, loved. Not everyone has to like it, of course, but to expose a bunch of Fish fans to that is worth
Sure.
more than just entertainment. I think that's culturally important as well.
Yeah, and I'm not going to disagree with you. I look at those things, and the dancers in the years they've had acrobats, and those things is really, Fish is not just for your ears. And when they do things like this, it does, you obviously about the light show, but when they pull in some of these theatrical components, dancing, the stage setup and props, and the creativity, that I'm certainly not denigrating any of the performers or anything like that. It's spectacular, and they're amazing athletes and artists. I look at it and I think that it's, important for, cultural purposes as well. I'm not sure that anybody is going to a fish show for cultural enrichment. Um, but it's nice that they offer it while we're there.
That's the point, right? Right. You're not going for that. I'm not going for white guys playing Prince either.
Right. Well,
But
that's
that's
true.
what I'm going to get.
Right.
So and that's
Yeah.
kind of the whole thing. You don't know what you're going to
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
when you go in. But I
Well,
loved it. It was fun. It was easy to follow. It was very beautiful. I thought
yeah.
that, like, I don't know if it was satin, but that very silky satin sheet coming out of the enormous milk carton that was supposed to be milk. Like, it was beautiful. It was an amazing expression of using props to
Yeah.
create a concrete image.
Yeah.
And the whole rest of it I think it mirrored purposely the meat stick gag with the push carts and the choreography. It looked almost identical. Now it's just ice cream men instead of hot dog vendors.
Right.
So that
Right.
was a part of it too. So it was a callback, which if they had been doing a lot to their past
Mhm.
artistry, just a new version of it in this ever expanding fish universe.
Yeah. I mean,
So I liked it. That's another
yeah.
way of saying I liked it.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, there was some reflections or echoes of, past New Year's,
Yep.
and that's okay. Like, who doesn't want to see a lizard dancing around on stage, or the sloth? I love seeing the sloth. Like, that's one of the best things that they do is when the sloth like climbed out of the ice box and like does this slow look around. Like, it's fucking hilarious. It's dumb. It's corny. It's visually stimulating, and all along you've got this thematic music that is carrying it forward. And Brian, there's no fucking place I would have rather been or rather be on any New Year's, whether they do a gag or come out in silly hats or paper bags or whatever. It's better than whatever else you probably would be doing, outside of seeing music.
For all my bitching at the very beginning of our conversation, I'm going to agree 1,000% with you. So let me ask you, Josh, to wrap this up. Any wishes for 2026? Any fish wishes for 2026?
Um,
Shoot for the moon.
yeah, I mean, I'd love to see him come back to Merriweather for a couple. I know that was one of the rumored spots when the rumors went around a couple weeks ago or months ago. Um, so that would be cool. Other than that, no, man, just everybody to be healthy. I mean, I would love for them to have a come to Jesus meeting with somebody about the platinum situation. But that's again a conversation for another time. Maybe we should do um
We should have a Festivus
and
airing
oh,
of
right, yeah, an
grievances.
airing of grievances, an open letter to the band. I'll bust out my Festivus poll again, but the ticket pricing thing, is not necessarily musically related, but just happy and healthy band, and a fan base that respects what they're trying to do, respects the communities that we visit to see them, and doesn't take it for granted, because as we both well know, it ain't going to be around forever. And I think that's what people like. You're going to New York again? I'm like, yeah, and I'm going to keep going until either they
Yeah.
stop going or I can't go, because it's finite, and you never know what you're going to get. And it has become more than just going to four concerts, like getting to see you, even though it was just for a couple of beers, and our friends and people that we hadn't seen. Like, there was one dude I probably hadn't seen in 15 years, wasn't even a Fish fan. Like, I just knew him. We were in like a fantasy football league years and years ago. And we're at Mustang Harry's after the show one of the nights. And he like tapped me on the shoulder and he's like, "Yo, J Dub." And I was like, "Holy shit, Woody." Like, he's like, I saw a show a couple years ago, and he's like, I haven't been able to stop going since. And so, like, those moments, it all adds up so that it's not just about the music, we're there for the music, but at the end of the vacation, it turns out that the music, while a huge part, was only just a part.
Right. It's greater than the sum of its parts.
Right, exactly. And so, that's what these fish trips have turned into for me and Megan is we get to go, we explore some places, new or old, but it is more, journey and process and all of these parts that combine what a fish trip is. And it's not just, going to the show and then crashing out in your hotel room the next day until, it's time to start partying again.
Yeah, save that for Merriweather Post. Josh, thanks for joining me today, but doing our now annual New Year's Eve recap. So happy New Year to you, sir. And I hope we see each other again soon.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you reaching out. And as always, it was great to see you. Please give my best to your lovely wife. And yeah, for sure. Hopefully we'll catch each other again real soon, brother.
And that's it for my conversation with JW from the Stub Me Down podcast about Fish at Madison Square Garden, 4 nights, 2025, ending early morning 2026. So thank you so much for listening. Regular episodes of Attendance Bias will resume within a week or two, but thank you so much for listening for this off-the-cuff recap of MSG. Hope you had a good holiday season and see you soon, hopefully on summer tour.